Hello and welcome everyone to the Q&A for the Manitoba Shorts and Competition screening at this year's Gimli Film Festival. My name is Andrew Burke. I'm an associate professor at the University of Winnipeg, and I had the honor of being on the jury for the Manitoba Shorts and Competition this year. I'll be moderating tonight's Q&A, fielding questions from our online audience for the filmmakers, and grabbing the opportunity to ask them a few questions of my own. But before I get started, I just want to thank our sponsors, Johnston Group, who every year sponsor the Gimli Film Festival's Manitoba and Canadian short films. Huge thanks to them. Thanks also to RBC for the support of the GFF live stream, and also to Manitoba Film and Music, who have once again sponsored the Best Manitoba Short Film Audience Choice Award. So if you're tuning in right now, please be sure to vote for your favorite Manitoba short film by scrolling down below the video to find the audience choice poll. To vote, you must be signed into a Google or Gmail account to ensure that each viewer only votes once. At the end of this Q&A, we'll announce the winner as chosen by you, our Gimli Film Festival audience. If for some reason you don't see the audience choice poll below the video, or if you see the previous poll for the pitch competition, which happened earlier today, just refresh the page and then vote. You should see it there. All right, so first of all, thanks to all the filmmakers for joining us today and for sharing their incredible work with us. It was, again, a real pleasure to be on the jury, and what we have selected and what you saw in the live stream event earlier is an incredible selection of films. But to begin, maybe we can just go through and have all of you introduce yourselves and just say a few quick words about what your film was so people at home can connect names to faces to films. So I'm getting a real Brady Bunch screen here. So I want to say, let's start in the upper left-hand corner, which would be Trevor. Oh, you always have to unmute yourself. This is Zoom.
My apologies. Usually I'm doing more of the talking and I never mute myself. So it's refreshing to do that. Sorry. So thanks for introductions, and pleasure to be with everyone today. Excellent program. So the film that I made is in collaboration with Daniel Gerson, who is two squares to my right. So it's a co-direction. I think there another film was also co-direction called North Starling. Is the black and white film without dialogue, sort of following this woman through the streets of Winnipeg, the North End, during the harsh, cruel winter, which I said goodbye to because I'm living in Florida now, although it's got problems of its own, but not that problem. That's all I'll say now.
Great, thanks, Trevor. So next up for me is Tiff, actually. So I don't know if you're all seeing the same Brady Bunch configuration I am, but I'll just point to people. Tiff.
Hi, I'm Tiff. I love all your shorts. They were so nice. I watched them twice. My short was the one about Portage Place.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And we'll hear more about that in a bit. Now, sort of next up for me is Daniel.
Yeah, hi. Trevor did a good job introducing our film, but yeah, it was just, I'll quickly add that, it was really inspired by kind of neo-realist Italian cinema. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. Now, Vince.
Oh, hi. My name is Vince, and I'm the co-director and the DP of Wolves. I directed this film with Gino and Ania, and the film is about a father and a son that lives in a secluded forest, bear a dark secret.
Perfect. Sort of, we'll get to Gino in a bit, because then that way you'll have a chance to fill in any blanks that you think of in between now and then. But for now, let's go to Damien.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Damien Furlad. I made Bible Camp Memories, and yeah, I'm happy to be here today or tonight.
Thanks so much, Damien. We'll talk more about Bible Camp Memories very shortly. Sarah.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Bulla, and I wrote and directed Hot Dog Guy. It's inspired by a real-life experience and originally created for the 48-Hour Film Contest 2019.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sarah. Jeremiah.
Hello, my name is Jeremy. My film was Green Run, and it's about two men that get off work and hit every single green light all the way home.
Perfect. Quick synopsis. Excellent. Okay. And now we are back down to Gino.
Hey, what's up? I'm Gino. I directed and wrote and also starred in Wolves, and also had Vince co-directing it. But yeah, he basically said it's a father and son having like bearing a dark secret and living on like a secluded land. So yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And last but not least, we have Julie, who's here with Philip Racine.
Hi. Yes, I did the film Precious Load, Tales of a Turtle Mountain Trapper, and focused on my friend here, Philip Racine, who is a 4th-generation trapper, and also rescued my friends one cold winter night.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. We'll have a chance to talk more about that too, obviously. So thanks everyone for introducing yourself and sort of for reminding everybody about the films that you've made. We'll have questions coming in from the online audience, I'm sure. I'll be keeping an eye on questions that are coming in, whether they're in the chat or I don't know, sent by fax or telegraph, who knows? They're going to send them somehow and we're going to answer them. But I thought I would get things started by asking a question myself. And I wish I could say that I had some kind of super question that was about all 10 films, but I don't. I'm going to parcel them up and ask a few different questions about films, joining them together. And I thought I would start off by asking a question about that brings together a couple films and maybe does so a little bit unexpectedly. Now, Damien, Memories is literally in the title of your film. So it's no big leap for me to say that it's a film about memories. But I was curious about what really prompted you to revisit these memories, like both emotionally, but then also literally, like going to the camp and finding yourself on site again, because that seemed to be such an integral part of the force of the film. And as I was thinking about memory and history, I was thinking about it again with Julie's film, Precious Load, which on one hand is about Métis history, and it's the tales of the Turtle Mountain Trapper, as the title itself says, but it also revisits a very specific episode that's at the core of the film as well and gives the film its title. So I guess I kind of want to ask both of you the question about memory. Sort of what is it that sort of made you want to make a film that revisits these things? You're on the hook first, Damien.
Hi. Yeah. Well, I think that I typically think a lot about something that has happened a lot. If it was ever an awkward moment, I kind of revisit it a bit much. In a way, it's like over time, I start finding the humor in it, and it could be like an uncomfortable, awkward moment that I once experienced. And then eventually I realized that I was starting to find the humor in these things, like in the camp counselor, like Torso. And it's like, oh, this is so strange. Such a strange experience. And so over the past while, I've been doing a lot of memory related stuff and stuff about memories. And yeah, this was a really, like that, my time going to camp 3 years in a row. Yeah, there's so many exceptional moments to put together in one short film.
And do you still have the collection of 50 Family Circus paperbacks?
No. I think they went to my niece.
Oh, okay.
The last I heard of them.
They live on. That's great.
It's true. Some child is really bored by them right now, and
So even though Precious Load seems like a substantially different film than Damien's, there was that connection with the idea of history and memory. So I was wondering, Julie, if you could say a little bit about sort of your film and how it sort of thinks about history, but then thinks about memory in a more specific way, linked to a kind of tangible event.
You know, that's so what I'll use my memory to go back and tell you this story, because I really feel like I was so captivated by it. I knew I had to tell the story, which was I had a memory of no, I'll go back. I was asked to do a story, film on history, and I'm really not, it's not really a subject that is near and dear to me. And I really feel like if I'm going to tell a story, I have to have a connection to it myself. So then one day I just had this memory come to me about 3 of my friends who were lost in the Turtle Mountain. This was back like 25 years ago. It just came to me. And I hadn't met Philip yet, but I knew that there was a connection there because I knew people who knew the Turtle Mountain and stuff. And so my friends were rescued by a trapper. So a month later, Philip and I, our paths crossed, and knowing that he is a trapper, I had asked him like if he had ever heard of these 3 girls being lost in the mountain. And his response was, yeah, and if he knew who had rescued them, and his response was, that was me. And so being asked to tell this story and having this memory, I knew I had to tell the story. I just had to figure out how I was going to intertwine them together. To also like honor his history and his family and his passion, his love for that place.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's another thing that reminds me that maybe unexpectedly binds the 2 films together, because both Damien and Philip are really extraordinary storytellers. And one of the things that got me through both films and had me riveted in both films is just both of your abilities to tell stories. And I was kind of curious in each case, are the stories part of a storehouse you have, or were the stories kind of developed and worked for the film itself?
I think that, well, yeah, I mean, these are all like little fragments in my head, and it took some time to really put together something that worked, and it would even be in conversations, like I'd bring it up and I would remember one little detail, and then I would just kind of like keep it going, and just amassing a list of things that happened, and I eventually was able to have a complete enough story, enough flow, and yeah, and it took it. It's not like I was actively working at it, but it was something that just kind of built up over time, and write down a note in Google Docs or email it to myself or something like that, and then just amass it. And so yeah.
And then sort of with the Tales of the Trapper, that's very much like, it's an incredible collection of like tales, but also part of a larger oral history that is crucially important for telling the story of the community, the story of the Métis, the story of a practice of being on the trap lines. So how much did you really want to sort of focus on the tales as well?
That was very important because of the local history organization that had hired me to work for them, that we incorporate the history. To be honest, for me, it was like they wanted a film that could be taught in schools.
Okay.
It was important to me that kids in this local area knew that there was a hero among them, right? Because I really felt like he's a hero in his own humble nature. So that was important to me to tell that. And where that heroism came from. It didn't just come from just him being, like, it did just come from him just being him, but it also had a history to that as well. The survival of his family, the community, the people that had to come together to survive, the fact that they had to fight for their trap line, and the story that, the other thread in the story was that if they hadn't have fought for their trap line, he wouldn't have been in the position to find those girls.
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that your film gives them the opportunity to recount these tales, but it's also like a mode of preservation as well, right? Now these tales are saved on film and sort of have a broader reach. So that's another aspect of it that I totally loved.
Yeah.
Can I move on? And it's a Gimli Film Fest, but I want to talk about Winnipeg a little bit, because several of the films sort of really evoke and represent and envision the city. And I kind of want to start it with Green Run, because Green Run, whenever I watch it, I think that it exemplifies some paradigmatic Winnipeg fantasy, that you can sort of hit all these green lights on and on and on and on and on. And especially once you get to the line, "Screw you, Winnipeg, and your system of lights," that's somehow perfect, just in terms of thinking about these guys' relationship with this and sort of the incredible thing that they're living through. So the question I guess I have for you, Jeremy, in relationship to this is, like, it is quite a remarkable film in how you shoot it, because like you do shoot it as with all the tension and excitement of a heist film or a high stakes poker match. And I just want to see if you could tell us a little bit about how you ramped up that tension, how you created the conditions for such a kind of like, for a film that was like just so dramatically intense.
So it starts out so small and then it continues to build, and they understand that, right? So every light that they're hitting after it starts to get to be a serious real run, it just gets more important and more important, right? So the further they get, the better the film gets. And I almost wish I had more stuff to throw in. I should have thrown in more obstacles for them to throw in like later on, and just more things to get over. But either way, it still works as a real fun run, right?
Somehow, what is it, 31 greens? That's a good run.
29. It's based
29.
on a true, and it's based on a true story, so it can happen. It can happen.
And was it a difficult film to shoot? Like how? Because certainly it wasn't a one-shot run all the 30 or run the 29 lights and you're done. Sort of like it must have been complicated to reconstruct that kind of fantasy drive through.
We cut the entire run into thirds and shot for 3 nights, and then just stayed in each third and completed all the footage and everything that we needed within those thirds each night. It was minus 30 plus each night. It was terrible. It was January over New Year's, because that was the only time that I could get like qualified, fun people to work with. So it was a real challenge, but we made something, and we made it.
You made it entertaining, and it's quite an exhilarating film to watch. For that reason, you find yourself getting caught up in the drama and suspense of it all, and that's fundamentally why it works, right?
One of the most fun things was I kickstarted this film and to raise the money and everything like that, and it was great because I had a running count, so I think it was probably about 23 people that came up to me at one point in time over the course of me trying to raise the money, and they're like, "This one time, I hit all the lights from IKEA all the way to North Kildona," or something like that, in a different city. So it was great to hear those stories, because it does occur. It happens, and it's kind of fun when it does happen.
Yeah. So you very much tap into that fantasy and that desire. I want to jump up to Tiff now, because it's a very different type of film about Winnipeg, but it is just as interesting in terms of the way that it draws on kind of fantasies and nightmares in a way, sort of like the hope of the past and maybe the actuality of the present. But yeah, I was wondering, you must have found the audio first. And did you live with the audio for a while before making the film, or am I getting that totally wrong? Sort of how crucial was the found audio for the film you eventually made?
The found audio I got first and made sure it was the right length, because I did this one for the one take Super 8 thing at Windex last year. So a Super 8, a single roll is around 3 minutes and 29 seconds. So I got that audio, and then I kind of wrote out a shot list, and yeah, it was all built on that found audio.
And I mean, one of the magic things about it is it works so well through juxtaposition, the juxtaposition of the audio track with the images that you present with us to us. And like on one hand, there's a real conceptual wit to it, right? It has moments of humor, but it also has moments of like melancholy as well, and moments of political edge too, just as it explores the dynamic of what once was hoped for and what is. But were these things running through your mind as you conceived the film and as you shot it, or is that just an effect of what you did?
It was kind of like the intention I was going for. Something about that kind of, there's something very Winnipegian about, you know, the juxtaposition between like grand aspirations and the reality that we actually wind up with at the end. And I don't know, it just, something about that just seemed very, very Winnipeg to me.
Yeah, no, it is. And sort of, it does feel as if it's part now of a longer tradition of Winnipeg films that examines that gap or that disjunction between hopes and actuality, maybe.
Yeah, like at the time I had watched a bunch of like Matthew Rankin films. Sure. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't realize it would be so topical again this year, because I made it last year when the mall just got sold, and I had worked there for many years. Like I had been a like video store clerk and stuff, and I was like, I'll capture this because it'll be gone soon. And now all of a sudden it's in the news again, just as it's showing at Gimli Film Fest, which is kind of weird and serendipitous.
Yeah, not even topical this year, it's topical like this week. So
yeah.
the timing is totally uncanny. I'd like to move on to North Starling now with Daniel and Trevor, just because like it's another, I was trying to figure out how to describe this film to someone, and I got kind of close, I think, in that it's a really bold, experimental portrait of a person and a place and maybe even a period. The film does even more than that. So I was kind of curious about two things. First, I love the film visually, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you were trying to aim for in the various visual experiments you were undertaking in the film. But I was also really curious about your collaboration with the actor and screenwriter, with Carrie Parenteau, just because it does seem like such a kind of like organic collaboration you must have had with her in order to make this film.
Carrie and I, we've been friends for over 10 years, and we've collaborated on a few projects. She used to do a lot of modeling, so I did a lot of photography. So we kind of built a friendship over that. And I was just, as I said kind of earlier in my introduction, I was really interested in Italian neorealism. Making a film in Winnipeg in the winter, so isolating, and so we kind of kind of developed this character, and we just kind of made this sad, lonely film. I mean, I think to make films you don't have to be this intellect. You just need to be you need to have raging emotions inside of you, and if you have those emotions, things can play out. So I definitely had that kind of aesthetic with the documentary, the moving camera, and following somebody around. And then I know Trevor will have a lot to say because he did a lot of the editing. Well, he did the editing and the visual effects, and he knows experimental cinema very well. And he was really able to kind of get this kind of crazy, kind of sad story out.
I'll just add quickly because we can hear from others, but I think Daniel sort of shot a lot of the footage and provided the kind of neorealist authenticity. And then when I started to delve more deeply into the material, I kind of brought a more experimental stream of consciousness kind of exploration. And I found myself editing as much vertically as horizontally in order, just as an experiment. And it was an experiment, was where experimental film comes from, to see if that could work to inhabit the character's sort of psychological, emotional, visceral kind of experience of her life, and to do that with as little narrative as possible.
And could you say something about the sound design as well? Because that was such a powerful part of the film, choosing to have it with no dialogue, but to have like a rich array of both ambient sounds and other sounds shape our experience of the film.
I worked with Andy Rudolph and Alec Rosowski, and Trevor and I, we kind of, worked on a lot of the sound notes together, and it kind of just came organically. I know that's a really kind of a brief answer, but I'm more interested in what Trevor has to say. He's more articulate than me.
Well, I'll just one thing that occurred to us when working was that, well, we noticed that there were a lot of moments that were being repeated. There's a sense of the repetition of our everyday life, and that's perhaps the source of sadness or melancholy Daniel was speaking of. But then it occurred to us, well, to make that a little bit more exciting, it was as though she is reliving her life, or she is replaying it to herself. So we started to introduce some sounds of her writing, and her the sounds of writing, the sounds of scissors cutting, the sounds of someone with their life, with the fragments of their life splayed on the floor. Was kind of the spirit of the soundtrack.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And I want to use that sense of sound to bridge moving into a couple of other films as well, particularly Wolves, because Wolves, the one that closed out the program. One of the things that I did really notice about watching it the second time is just the tension in the film is electric from the very beginning, and that has something to do with how much you withhold from us, both in terms of narrative information, but also in terms of like sensory stuff as well. It's some of it's shot at night with just sparks in the fire, but then also in audio terms, a lot's held back from us as well. So I mean, it's a banal thing to say, but a short film is short. You have to establish a lot in a relatively quick period of time. And I was curious about your use of kind of atmosphere as much as exposition to really set up what the film was about. It's an open invitation to talk about the first few minutes, really.
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things I wanted to explore in that whole thing, and it was like through the writing and then also through a relationship, was and it like ended up coming through, I guess, with tension, but the aloneness you kind of feel with somebody at the same time, like that feeling of being alone while being with somebody internally and then also externally. So it was really nice being in the woods, and then also like the lack of dialogue we kind of had, and then the tension as well kind of we were able to play with that really, really well. And then especially with the really long scenes that we kind of like really like stretched out, we played with a lot. I don't know if I really have anything else to add. I don't know. What about you, Vince?
Just in terms for the sound design, I think in the initial concept of the film, I think that when we approached it, it is about these two characters, this father and son, who might not have, they're kind of distant to each other. And I think that the environment that we put themselves in it was a character in themselves. So I think that using those ambient or atmospheric sounds was almost kind of representational of the words that they don't really talk to each other about. They kind of, the father kind of just feel distant to the son. So I think that kind of having those moments of just hearing the environment speak about their relationship that's between the two characters.
And there's a stillness to it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both actors have such incredible composure and can hold a scene and tell us so much, right? Without doing too much, right? So much is communicate through the smallest details.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a lot of like the film really, this, I guess the strength in terms of how we tell the story is a lot about what these characters don't say and the communication through body language.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
You need to, like, we don't have to spoon feed the audience in terms of exactly like how these two interact with each other.
Yeah, perfect. And I'll use that for a bridge to go to Sarah, because I have a similar question about Hot Dog Guy. And that's an even shorter film. It's 4 minutes long, right? But it is very narratively rich. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Hot Dog Guy. It feels a little bit like a film at two parts almost. So I guess I wanted to ask you a question about just the conception of it, right? How we know from the title that the hot dog guy is a central figure in the film, but yet he's the fulcrum between these two parts of it. So what's the shape of this film? How did you put it together narratively?
Well, it was inspired by a real life experience that I kind of had that kind of turned into like a funny story between friends of sharing like weird club experiences. And this one time that I ended up crying against the wall and a hot dog guy tried to comfort me. And also with the 48-hour film contest, it was kind of by virtue had to be short, because originally in like the real life it was inspired by, it was a bit more social anxiety, but as I was scripting it, I was realizing like, A, we don't have time for that, and B, it felt weird to try and like give her a reason to be anxious when really, like, I have so many friends where this just kind of happens. Maybe something that happened earlier that day, or just the environment can be very stressful. So I just wanted it to be more the environment that triggers her, and then get to what I think is like the funny part of the interaction between the character's boyfriend and this hot dog guy. And yeah, it's a moment of like surreal humor, but then also a real moment of like affection or something as well. Yeah, I think it's nice how so many people can be so like nice and sympathetic to you when you're having a moment like that, but it still just feels so kind of fucked up. and it just kind of like ends up getting like a little bit weird and awkward, but like it's so nice that people respond that way.
And disorienting, which came through in the way that you shot it and in the way you framed it too, right? Trying to communicate the experience.
Our cinematographer, when I told him like, so I think a lot of it's going to be handheld, he was like, okay, getting like you could tell he was kind of getting ready to hold it a lot, because it takes a lot of muscle power.
Perfect. So we do have one question from online, and it comes from Dave Barber, and it's a question for Trevor and Daniel. And it's about whether you were influenced by those classic NFB films of the 1950s and 1960s, whether sort of there's a nod, not simply to Italian neorealism, but say to Paul Tomkowitz, or sort of the direct cinema kind of the camera eye stuff of the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, I mean, I love Arthur Lipset.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's some elements of that going on. And yeah, Paul Tomkowitz, if I'm pronouncing that right, I definitely did see it, and it was, I saw it before we went into shooting, so that definitely played a big part too.
Yeah, and just like a follow-up to that, can you talk about, you worked with some creative consultants on the project, and it did seem as if like it was part of a larger, in dialogue with a larger community. So in terms of like how it was put together, and sort of how did you approach people thinking that you wanted to work with them and in their style?
Like, do you mean like the cinematographers that I worked with?
Yeah. And even working with Alex on sound, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of, you know, came into cinema during a really great time in Winnipeg, and you know, for example, you know, Matthew Rankin and Walter Forsberg and Ryan McKenna, and Deco was doing his thing, and Trevor started making films when he was like 15 years old. So yeah, so I just kind of, you know, got to hang out with these great people, and I always wanted to make films and things like this, and just having things in common helps a lot. And yeah, everything kind of came together because of that. So hanging out with the right kind of people can help a lot.
Yeah, and then forging a visual style of your own out of that is something that's very powerful, and something that's very apparent in North Starling, because on one hand it's like in relationship to these other things, but on the other hand it's a thing on its own. It's quite remarkable, sort of in terms of the story that you tell and how it is shot as well. Okay, so it's getting close. It's already 20 minutes to 9, so I think we're going to move on now to a few announcements, because we have some prizes to give out. So before I announce this year's Audience Choice Award winner, we actually have another special announcement tonight. Every year, the peer jury that selects the Manitoba Shorts in Competition awards a special Best Manitoba Short Jury Film Prize. This year, the jury, as Steph said before the screening, consisted of Fabian Velasco, Jocelyn Perinayan, and myself, Andrew Burke. Always weird to read my name out off screen. And although there were so many deserving films in the program, it was a very hard choice to make. We deliberated for an extended period of time. The jury decided to award the Best Manitoba Short Film Award to North Starling by Daniel Gerson and Trevor Mochin. So let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations, guys. And would you like to say a few words, an impromptu short speech, or just a thank you?
I just want to say thank you. And I'm going to give half of my award to Damien, because I think Damien's great. But I'm just talking silly right now. So Trevor, do you want to say something?
We're deeply honored and surprised. Just very moving to share the award with Daniel, my longtime friend and collaborator. We go way, way back, and the film is in a way a kind of expression of our love of cinema and our discovery of cinema, and pushing the limits of our own cinematic intelligence during our formative years. So it's very meaningful in that sense.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, I have received the results as well for the Audience Choice Award poll. And I'm very excited to announce that the winner of the Manitoba Film and Music's Audience Choice Award for Best Manitoba Short Film, which includes a $500 cash prize, is Tiff Bartel for Portage Place. Tiff, congratulations.
Oh, wow.
Would you like to say a few words or a thank you as we wrap things up here?
Oh, thank you so much. That's very surprising. But thank you. I know the rest of you all deserve this.
Yeah, it's always like both awkward and happy moments, but congratulations on winning. And sort of, as I said before, it was an incredible slate of films we were able to put together this year for this competition, and watching them again tonight just drove home their strengths to me once again. So unfortunately, our time is getting short, so I'm going to wrap things up here. So thanks so much, first of all, to all the filmmakers who came out today. It was lovely to talk to you, and it was lovely to meet you. And please stick around for our very special 9 p.m. screening of Mothni by Sky Hopinka, Mothni Towards the Ocean, Towards the Shore, which is only available on the GFF live stream at 9 p.m. tonight. So you have to stick around. You have to watch it now. This is a lifetime amazing event. So once again, thanks to the Johnston Group and Manitoba Film and Music and RBC. And thanks to all of you at home, online, tuning in. We'll see you back here at 9 for the Hopinka film. And I guess I'll just say goodbye from me and goodbye from all the filmmakers. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone.